Can I just say, just to sort of like broaden out the main point here, and I'd be really interested to hear what Giles thinks about this from a Christian perspective, because I think the single most intractable problem in human existence is free will. Do we have it or not? It's that is really the.
But I mistrust all kind of deterministic worldviews. I think we have to have it. And if we don't have it, we have to believe we have it.
That's another bit. I agree with you there, and I think there's a lot to be said for believing that we have it, even if there's a
which is the distinction I made: useful belief versus accurate belief.
Exactly.
But anyway, Giles.
No, I don't. Do you know, it's very strange that everybody thinks that's the sort of like one of the great central questions.
Oh, you don't feel so?
I'm totally uninterested.
Right.
Only because I suppose, if I'm thinking about it, I'm trying to work out what practical difference it makes. Whether, I'm predetermined to order a glass of wine, or whether I can order a glass of wine. It's like.
Well, I suppose it's the extent to which you feel that your responsibility.
It does make a
difference. Can we punish you if you have 3 glasses of wine?
Yes, you can punish me.
But Charles, also, what about individually? If you're a Calvinist, if you're someone who believes that, I can go through life as a juggernaut because I'm already predestined to salvation or already damned, that affects your moral behaviour. It affects your conduct. It's
or vice versa.
Because if you don't believe that there is free will, you can just say, well, literally, I can do anything. Because I didn't have a choice, and by doing so, you make the wrong choice.
I wonder if, I see that. I wonder if that actually is how it works out practically for people, because I think there's sufficient uncertainty about whether we do have free will or not, for it to, like, we look. I mean, in this is a sort of hackneyed religious framework, very, very hackneyed, but. If you think that all my decisions are predetermined, so I'm not responsible, so God cannot be rightly, damning me for what it is that I do, it seems to me that none of us can be sufficiently convinced about the sort of predetermination to really risk the issue of whether God damns us or not. So I think we have to take responsibility. I mean, in practical terms, I think you just divide through by this question. I don't ever feel it. Of course, I feel responsible.
I don't personally. I think the thing is, on a personal level, that's probably where the mystery arrives. Is because on a personal level, I agree with you. I tend to feel like I'm in the sea. Literally in the sea. We live in Brighton, so maybe that's my sort of like go-to metaphor. But that feeling that once you're in the sea, you're in the sea. There's a limit to what you can do. You're going to be moved around. You can do this with your arm. You can do that with your arm. But if you're in a riptide, if you're going, there's an awful lot of external pressure. That I feel that about life, and I feel that about me. But I feel that from a sort of social policy point of view, and how we engage with the rest of the world and the humanity we encounter on a daily basis, there are useful distinctions to be made on how you treat them. There's a thing called I think it's called. God, I can't remember. It's one of those heuristics that that crop up in a lot of books nowadays, which explain how you treat other people. But whatever it's called, it's the tendency to assume guilt on the part of somebody who's done something wrong, but to find a contingency that explains it, a contextualisation for yourself. So somebody else who crashes into a child outside the school, you go, bloody idiot, shouldn't have been doing 30 miles an hour outside of school. But when you're doing it, it's like, well, it was like, I had a bad night's sleep or whatever. There's always an excuse. If you can flip that over,
I believe in original sin, so of course, I flip that over.
The extent you can flip that over, the extent you can always look for some way of understanding what other people have done, and also to some extent go, all right, you haven't had a good night's sleep, but still you have a responsibility of duty of care towards your fellow humans. That's a good life. That's a big part of it. But of course, really, it's all still in the air. It's a cloud. It doesn't really rest on rock. You know what I mean? It has no fundamental. It's a philosophical position you can take, but you can't really situate it.
So there's a quasi-religious, for all our stuff.
I think so.
There's a little religious nub in all of that
to
work on.
Yeah.
And he is. You, however, from what you said, you're not religious, are you?
No.
No, you love it. He is. He is.
So
he looks the most like Saint Sebastian of any of us.
No. You're quasi-religious.
Let me tell you my view on this determinism versus free choice thing. I think our path is predetermined. But it's a range of paths. So the range is not 360 degrees. You have a range of things that you can do within this. So if you are me, let's say, or one of the three of us, you could have been a comedian, you could have been a teacher, you could have been a politician maybe, you could have been something that involves speaking, but none of the three of us could have ever been an NBA basketball player.
Yes,
Right.
that's all true.
None of the three of us
No,
could ever have been some. So the range of choices that we have is predetermined by genetics, it's predetermined by upbringing, it's predetermined by education.
I'm
That's
sorry to
not
interrupt,
what
but I
we
think
mean by
this is a category error, and you have to
Could
narrow
be.
it down a little bit before you can speak truthfully about the paradox, because
Yeah.
it's not whether or not you can be an NBA basketball player.
Yeah.
Obviously, you need to be 6 foot plus or whatever, but it is, for instance, whether or not you could have done your best. You know, whether
Well,
or not you could have
historically,
committed.
You
hard
could,
enough.
and this is my
the
point
question-
about the range, which is
Yeah.
within this range you could have been a criminal,
Yeah.
or you could have been this,
Yeah.
but you could never have been a basketball
No,
player.
but you're
or-
almost into that kind of, funny as it is, you're almost into that kind of I identify as an attack helicopter kind of mode there. You know,
In what sense?
Well, look, you're not a basketball player because you are physically not a basketball player. That's
Right.
a physical reality. It's much more to do with the decisions you make. You
No,
can,
there
you
are people-
absolutely, you can dedicate the rest of your life to becoming as good at basketball as you possibly can.
And I have, and I'm terrible.
but have you got that choice? That's where it gets interesting to me. I think to myself, I really want to educate myself about X, and then when I try, I fail.
But that's,
you know,
again,
I put the book
But the
down and
question
I
of-
end up
I-
drinking and
the
watching
question
telly.
of- the
But,
question
but
of
the only
predetermined-
difference is that part of it is unseen.
Yeah.
So whatever is stopping you from dedicating yourself to reading a particular book, it's not the same as not having the rapid twitch muscles or being 6 foot.
I mean, being an NBA player is like, can I walk across the Sahara without water?
Yes, but can you dedicate yourself to a book? May also be like that. It's just not visible to the naked eye.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
That's
I think determining your course of action to the best of your abilities.
Yes.
That's where it gets interesting.
Agreed.
I think the idea we have no choice, though, is just.
No, I don't
it-
believe
it is just
we have
a
choice for sure.
hell. It's just
No,
hell.
right.
you have to experience the sense of having choice, and I think like the overwhelming majority of great traditions, religious and otherwise, have said that we do. We all universally experience life as
But
though
even
we
if
were
we
choosing.
don't, this is the whole point about Weber and the Protestant work ethic,
Yeah.
and about the way how this grows out of Calvinist predetermination. We may be predetermined. This is the Calvin position that heaven or hell, salvation or not, but we don't know which one we are.
No, that's
okay.
right.
This is the problem in the Calvinist structure, and so you've got to work bloody hard because work is the only thing.
Yes.
That actually can be an
Yeah.
indication of whether you're saved or not. So
James is coming in. Can I just say, I really agree with that. Work, no, carry on, James. Work, to the extent that it's ever mentioned at all in any of the great philosophical traditions, is always mentioned.
with regard to Calvinism or
Thank you so much.
It's
James.
held
That
in
was
high
wonderful.
esteem. People,
Incredible.
Freud says it's necessary, right?
Really, really.
Marx says his whole problem with capitalism is that it alienates you from your work. It makes your work irrelevant, and that is a terrible crime. And I agree with that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't
How
agree
so?
necessarily that capitalism is the worst thing for doing that to you, but to the extent that it does do that, that's a crime. Nobody-
How does it alienate?
Christianity-
Well, because as per Smith, it proselytizes division of labour, because that's how you increase productivity. Until instead of making radios or even horseshoes, you are making the
You're a
one
cog in a
particular
piece of
layer.
plastic.
You're a
Yeah.
cog in the machine. and
You're
then
divorced from the
become
output, and you have no idea what's going on.
and you're alienated from your labour.
And he said, rather ridiculously, but I still love him for it, that he would rather be a ploughman before lunch and a fisherman after lunch and hunt after dinner and criticise.
philosophy
Yes,
in the evening.
yeah, disperse commensality in the evening,
Yeah.
And of course, it's not the way you can't run a society along those lines, but damn right you should aspire to,